Hello and welcome to the Rask Network. What you're about to hear and see is limited to general financial information only. Please be sure to speak to your financial planner or refer to our financial services guide available at rask.com.au/FSG before acting on the information.
Welcome back to the Australian Business Podcast. Today I'm joined by Zara. Zara, how are you?
Good, Jordan. How are you today?
Good. How's your week been?
It's been good. It's been good this week. We've been doing a lot of content planning this week for a lot of clients. So getting content calendars together, social media management.
Cool.
Which is quite topical of what we're about to talk about.
Ties in well.
Ties in nicely, doesn't it?
It does. I guess before we jump in, very high level content and I guess the strategies that you've been doing and posting and everything. How do you manage that? Are you sitting there posting one by one? Is there a platform?
Yeah, that's a good question. So we figure out what we want to do for the month. So we recognize kind of what's worked within the business within the last 30 days, for example. We build out a content plan and then obviously write the copy and we design the creatives and those kinds of things. And then we use platforms like Later, for example, to schedule that content. Yeah, so it goes out at a certain time on a certain day. Yeah. Because yes, otherwise it would be waking up and like making
for
sure
10 different clients as well.
And that's a lot.
Yeah, nightmare stuff.
Yes. Yep.
Cool. So I guess to dive in and I guess help our listeners with crafting a social media strategy, I guess the first point is to start with understanding the audience.
Yep.
What does that look like and how can we get started on that?
Yeah, good question. So I think looking at your current demographics, so who your audience is, what their age group is, and then once we figure that out, we can then identify, okay, well, what is someone in this typical age group, in this geolocation? What are some potential pain points that they might be experiencing in their day-to-day? Okay, and then how can our product or our service, how can that alleviate that pain point? So then what we want to be doing is understanding what's sort of working. So then after we've kind of figured out what our pain point is that we really want to be highlighting and we've created content to support that, then we kind of go and we test more of that. So essentially we understand kind of, I guess, what those core pain points are for that audience and for that demographic, and then we create content that's centered around that.
Yeah, cool. And I know we spoke about it at the start, but is it Later? Is that what it's called?
Yes.
The software?
Yeah. Later.
So that's something that everyone should be using, I guess.
Yeah, I mean, there's heaps of kind of different scheduling softwares to use. Later's pretty common. A lot of people use Later. It's pretty affordable as well. So, and yeah, it works.
Cool. And if we want to get a really good understanding of our audience and what they're looking for and what they want to see, what are some ways we can do that as business owners? So
we can use like surveys to get feedback. So it could be that we build a survey and we have it listed on our website. Yep. So then we can be directing traffic to our website to fill out this survey, which can give us an understanding of, what customers want, what they like about the business, what they don't like. There was actually a survey that I received from a clothing company about a month ago. And I obviously am on their email marketing kind of database. And it was they just wanted feedback on their brand. So it was like multiple choice questions around, how do you see our business? What are the core values that you align with our business? Would you recommend us? Why would you recommend us? So I guess coming from that, it then helps that business to say, okay, well, on average, 60% of our customers or 60% of the people in our database would recommend our business to their friends because of this reason, and 30% would recommend it because of this reason. So then it can help to inform how we're showing up and what we're communicating and what those, value propositions are, so that we can be getting more and more business and I guess resonating more with our customers.
Yeah. And is that something that you do through email marketing? Or would you send out a sequence? How does that work? Yeah,
so email marketing. So that was the way that this business that I kind of received it was through email marketing, or it can be through a survey on your website. So it's just using, Jotform or Google Forms or, an aesthetic version. But they're kind of some basic kind of entry-level ones, and you can embed that on your website. Obviously also through like comments and DMs that you get from people just through social media. So scouring your comments and understanding what people want, I think is also a really important part of the strategy. Just essentially understanding exactly what they're talking about. So then, following people back and seeing what they're posting and what they're sharing. And you can use, search listening tools as well to understand what people are wanting to know about your industry.
Cool. So once we have all that information, we've sent out the emails, we've got all this data now. What are the next steps that we need to take to create a really good content strategy?
So then it's kind of, I guess, compiling all of that information, analyzing it, and getting our key, 4 or 5 points of information. So what is the most frequent thing that people are saying? Is there like a common pain point? Is there a common question? Is there a common comment that people are making? We kind of find out what those 3, 4, 5 topics are, and then we build a content calendar around that. And so that could be, our calendar could involve, a piece of video content that could be an educational piece about the business. It could be a product promotion. It could be, a founder's story or a behind the scenes, or that EGC, employee generated sort of content to build those relationships. And then we kind of do that for each of those 4 pillars that we've identified that our audience want to know more about.
As a business owner, where time is always precious.
Totally.
How do you recommend, once you've done that, you've identified what you want to do, what's the best way to attack it? Is it just smashing it out in a day? Do you space it out? What's the best way to do it?
I would say invest like a 3 or 4 hour block and really dive into it and get it done. I've seen so many businesses that are like, I want to post something today, but I don't know what to post and I don't have time to think about it. And so I think if you actually just invest a whole chunk of time once a month to planning out your content, scheduling it, writing all of your captions, I think you also get into like a zone as well. Once you've kind of written 3 or 4, then you're kind of in that headspace of your brand voice, your tone of voice, and it comes more naturally and it flows quite quickly. So I think I would say definitely block out a chunk of time, when you operate best, but block out a chunk of time.
That's where it's good as well, because you don't have to keep, like you said, I need to post today, I don't have anything. If you're doing everything in a day, 2 days, whatever it is, you're done for the month, ideally.
Yes.
I mean, there are some businesses that are posting every day, 10, 20 times a day, but that content strategy is just very different. These businesses are more established. They've got full-time people doing it.
Yep.
If you are a one-person business or you don't have a specific marketing team, that's got to be the best way to do it.
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah, so lock in the time in the calendars, block it out. And we've spoken about it before on the podcast and through the Inflection group about having those golden hours where you are setting aside time.
Yeah, totally.
So I think that's the best way to do it, so you can create that content strategy, get it all done, especially if you don't like being in front of the camera, smash it out.
Yep. What would you say are your golden hours?
For like breaking it up into the business?
Yeah.
For me, it's in the morning. I like getting into the office early and getting all of my admin stuff out of the way.
Yeah.
So like first half an hour going through emails, cleaning all that type of stuff up. And then it's the SEO, going through, having an update, running some reports and seeing what the team did yesterday. They start at 9 o'clock.
Yep.
So do that for about half an hour, set them up for the day, and then a bit of accounting work, put it in about an hour aside a day for the accounting work. Not an hour a day accounting work, that'd be good. To set the team up again, just like high level workflow stuff.
Yep.
And then once that's done, it's a bit reactive. So depending on lodgement deadlines and whatnot, it still leave quite a big chunk to be reactive with emails and whatnot.
Yep.
So that's sort of how I plan my day.
Yep. So what are golden hours?
It's setting aside time to focus on a certain task. Yep. So we split up a business across the 4 segments, which is finance, operations, sales, and marketing. So very high level. For the marketing, it could be record a podcast or write a blog.
Sure.
Put an hour in the calendar. That's all I'm going to do in that hour.
Yep.
Finance, do my bookkeeping for the week. Put the hour in the calendar. That's what I'm going to do.
Yeah.
So it's just making sure that you're doing tasks across all the different areas of the business.
Yeah.
And even if you don't work for yourself, but you want to, that can help you really plan the week, because your time is so scarce. If you're working full time and you want to launch something, you need to make sure you're making forward progress with the minimum amount of time that you have available. So I think it's really important.
How do you make sure that you stick to those?
Sometimes it doesn't happen.
Yeah.
It's only normal. I'm not going to sit here and say, I'm a sergeant and just bang, bang, bang. It always happens. But sometimes there are days where you're just putting out fires. And I think that's pretty normal as a business owner. But I really do try my best to stick to it. Like when it's in the calendar, that's what we're doing for that period of time, because I know that's what's going to progress the business forward.
Yep. So it's trying to be proactive. Yeah. I guess.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But look, sometimes we're reactive.
Yeah.
Unfortunately,
of course, it has to happen.
Yeah. I think as business owners, I don't know, maybe someone has the perfect business, but from what I've heard is things pop up that you just can't avoid.
Yeah. Yeah, of course.
So you can't just bury your head in the sand and say, oh no, I'm only doing this for the next hour and a half. And sometimes it's not practical.
Yeah. I think my struggle is I've put it in my calendar. I don't want to do it at that time. I've put this particular thing in and I'm just like, but I don't feel like doing that right now.
Yeah.
You know, how do you just say, but that's what I'm doing and I just have to get into that headspace?
Yeah, I do. For that stuff, at the start, when we started our business, it was like all over the shop. Not all over the shop, but just like what we're doing, because there's so many different things that when you're a technician and you're working for someone and you're just doing accounting or you're just doing marketing, there's not sales happening, there's not marketing, there's not operations. It's different. So I think at the start it's a bit chaotic, but now we've really started, us at Grayspace have really started to find our groove and like really segmenting the business into different buckets. Yeah. And that's really helped with that stuff.
Yeah, I can imagine.
So
yeah. Okay.
Digressed a bit there, but no, it's a good point. And I think with content especially, it's super important. Like even when we have content days and set the cameras up and just smash it out, it's important to do that. Yeah. Because sometimes you can't just do an hour here, 10 minutes there. It's just not practical.
Yeah, exactly. And I think you do get into a headspace once you start it. Yeah. And once you kind of get into a flow, then you can kind of smash out quite a lot of it.
Yeah, exactly right.
Definitely.
Back to the content and I guess storytelling techniques. What does that look like? How can listeners and business owners craft these TikToks or TikToks, produce TikToks?
Oh, what a boomer. You're not even a boomer.
Create TikToks.
Totally.
TikTok dances.
So I think, the thing that sells is like when we're trying to connect with customers or connect with audiences, it's like that emotional thing that sells. So when we're kind of talking about, I guess, like marketing and selling, there's, you've got benefits to a product and you've got features to a product. And so the way that I explain it is like your features are your tech specs. So they're like how your actual product or how your service operates, what you do, how you do it. And then there's the benefits of the product, which are those intangible, emotional, feel-good things. Sometimes we go into, fear of missing out. Sometimes there's just like wanting to feel better, sometimes depending on kind of what is aligned to the business. And the way to get people in is through those emotional points. So there's emotional triggers. So really honing in on what those pain points are, and not pain points in the sense of like my boots hurt. Again, I'm going back to boots. I've bought a few pairs of boots, but not going into, people have uncomfortable boots, so we now sell orthotics. It's like, how can that particular, if it is orthotics, how does that actually improve the day-to-day of the person that's wearing them? And it's not about having more comfortable shoes. It's about potentially being able to focus at work. It's about potentially being able to have better conversations. If you're, selling something that helps, like kids' food bowls, for example, it's not about kids being able to eat by themselves. It's about the time that parent gets back as a result of that kid being able to eat by themselves.
Yeah.
So, and I think quite often when we see content failing, it's because we have focused on the wrong part of the strategy first. So we've focused on the tech specs of the product without selling those intangible emotional benefits that I get from being involved with this business. So I think that's the core thing, is really focusing on the emotional part. That's what we hook people in with. That's what people get excited by. And then once they're engaged and they're excited about the product or the service, then they go, okay, yeah, but does it work?
Yeah.
And how does it work? And how's it different from this brand that's 30 cents cheaper or $20 cheaper? And so that's when maybe we go into the tech specs of the product. And that's kind of when we get further down that funnel. So it's emotional triggers and emotional kind of conversations that really trigger those deeper connections with people, and you build those relationships, and then you solidify that with facts and figures. So if we're talking about skincare, again, it's not the ingredients that we have. It's maybe not even what those ingredients do, but it's the result of what those ingredients do that makes how I feel. Yep. So I focus on the feeling, and then I back that up with science. Yeah. And that's when I back it up with my ingredients. So I think it's really understanding what that is, again, going back to kind of that demographic. understanding what those pain points are and how your product or your service alleviates those, and then really going into, different ways that we can create that content. So it could be video content, it could be, static content, it could be testimonials from other users. And then, something that is really powerful is real life case studies and testimonials. So sharing that content. So UGC works really well. And I think having like a broad understanding of what is working and focusing on different parts is really important. So we talk about product, we talk about testimonials, we talk about a founder's story. There's different elements that play a role.
It's interesting. Maybe we should have flipped it, where it's understanding your audience, then the storytelling, then the content strategy.
Yeah.
Cool. But it's super, it sounds like you can't do one without the other.
Totally.
Otherwise you're just shooting in the air and hoping for the best.
Yep.
So in order of things to do as a business owner, is we spoke about those golden hours and locking time to go through this type of stuff, but it's understanding your audience, what they want to hear.
Yep.
Having a really good idea of these storytelling techniques, and it really refers back to those surveys and those interviews that you're doing, like what they want to hear. And then from there, that's where we go through and we do our strategy.
Yep.
And when doing the strategy, that end goal, are you planning for a month? Does it just depend how much content you've produced in those golden hours? What does that look like?
I think anything more than a month, you're potentially missing out on trends and things that are doing really well. And you kind of lock yourself into things. So I think
so quick.
Yeah. And so I think if you're going to plan in advance, I would say 4 weeks, like a month is good. And then reserve like stories and you can always create reels on the fly. Again, the purpose of that style content is quite organic. It's meant to be behind the scenes. It's not meant to be professionally shot. People want to get to know the business and the people behind the business, and that's kind of where stories and reels come into effect. So, you can always plan 4 weeks in advance, but then if something blows up and goes really well, everyone got on the Taylor Swift phenomenon and, have space at some point, set aside a golden hour once a week or something that you can then create some content to align with some trending kind of conversations that are happening in the bigger picture.
Correct me if I'm wrong, but those crisp videos where it's like super polished, would you say they're like not as popular now, and it's more so that user generated and employee generated content that's really taking off?
Yeah, I mean, I think they play a role, but no one wants to be sold to.
Yeah. Right.
So we know that when we see one of those really clean, put together, polished videos, that there's been a script, there's been an editor, there's been, all of these things, that it doesn't, or it definitely has a place, but it might not be like the core thing. That's where user-generated content, because it comes across as being an organic piece of content, is really important. And
the good thing about that for business owners is the barriers to entry for that UGC and the employee-generated content.
Yes.
It's nothing.
100%.
It's whatever the wages are you're paying the staff. So super important to get on top of that stuff.
Yeah. And I think the thing is, just give it a go.
Yeah.
Just start. Because I think when I talk to businesses, it's the getting started that's daunting, and it's the setting yourself up in front of a camera.
It's the worst. It's
the worst. But I was having a conversation with someone the other day, and she was like, I feel my most calm when I'm with my dogs and I'm outside. Great, go for a walk.
Yeah.
Start your content by walking, again, screen on you, talking to the camera, going for a walk with your dogs.
Yeah. And
start to get yourself comfortable in that space.
Yeah, exactly. And I say it's the worst, but at the start, for me personally, it was like I hated doing it. But now it's like we've done it so many times, it's not an issue.
Yeah, of course.
Like the camera's on now, wave at the camera. It's not that much of an issue. Whereas previously, I wouldn't be able to sit in the same room where Monique's there listening and the camera's on.
Yeah.
It's just practice. Practice makes perfect. And I think, again, given that it's user-generated, it's just you and your phone.
Totally.
So give it a crack.
Yeah.
And just get the more times you do it, the better you're going to get at it.
Yeah. And it's just start, and then you're going to start to see yourself improve. You're going to start to see the results coming through anyway.
So true.
Yeah.
Cool. Awesome. Just to recap, we ran through different ways you can, I guess, get better content.
Yeah.
So understanding your audience, different types of storytelling techniques, or different types of videos you can post on Instagram and TikTok. And also, you called me a boomer. What did I say?
You said how to create a TikTok.
How to create a TikToks. Yes, creating the TikToks. And then from creating the TikToks, you can then create your content strategy. So if you don't want to do it yourself and you do want some help with it, book a call with Zara. We'll have a link in the show notes and you can go from there. Awesome. Thanks for today, Zara.
Cool. Thanks for having me.
Thanks for watching this video on the Rask Network. While you're here, don't forget to like and subscribe so you can get videos each and every day on business, finance, investing, and so much more.